Hello everybody, I am Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming, and the Game Awards are almost upon us. However, there's been a bit of a development. There's always been a bit of controversy surrounding Game of the Year for the Game Awards because it's not entirely decided by a community vote. And people question the qualifications of the jurors that make up the majority of what will win Game of the Year. But the funny thing is that they also do another category that is entirely a vote by the community. That's called Players Voice. And Players Voice this year, in particular for 2024, is rather controversial, because we have had a swath of incredible games this year. I genuinely think 2024 has been an amazing year for gaming. We've had amazing bangers like Power World, Helldivers 2, Black Myth Wukong, Metaphor ReFantazio, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Persona 3 Reload. We just got Indiana Jones in the Great Circle as well, and we also got Stellar Blade. We've gotten amazing games in 2024. Do you want to know what got into the final 5 for Players Voice, though? Do you want to know why this has been so controversial? I'm gonna clue you in. Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, Genshin Impact, Zenless Zone Zero, Wuthering Waves. 3 gacha games and a DLC make up 4 of the 5 nominations. And I think most people will admit that Black Myth Wukong does deserve to be in the final 5, because that game was just incredible when I played it. Loved it to death. And there's been, let's call it, disagreement surrounding the finalists for Players Voice. A lot of people take issue with the fact that it's 3 gacha games and a DLC alongside Black Myth Wukong instead of a lot of those other games that I was talking about before. Among others, because again, there's been just so many great games that came out this year. Now, I'm not as down on this list as some others, because I think Wuthering Waves, despite being a gacha game, is absolutely incredible, and the redemption arc that game has had since launch earlier this year to where it's at right now, it's shocking just how much of an improvement that game has undergone. I think Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is an overall phenomenal experience. I do think public sentiment in regards to it will kind of die down as time goes on, but overall I would classify Shadow of the Erdtree as one of my favorite gaming experiences of 2024. I enjoyed Zenless Zone Zero a little bit, but it didn't stick with me, and I bounced off of Genshin Impact years ago. But the main point I want to draw at when it comes to Players Voice and these nominations for 2024, and the nominations for Game of the Year, and how should they be elected, should it be a popular vote, should it just be a jury, what's the right answer? And I just don't think there is one, because at the end of the day, you will never get everybody to agree. That's just never going to happen, because people like different things, they value different things, they enjoy different genres compared to others, different tolerance levels when it comes to certain gameplay mechanics or monetization policies. Some people may actually enjoy gacha, some may be repulsed by the very notion. Some may look at a DLC like Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, say this has been one of the best gaming experiences I've ever had, and it absolutely does stack up to full entire games in terms of the amount of content that's there and the quality of the content that's there, and it should absolutely be in contention and be compared to these full games. And then you'll have others that write it off as simply DLC, put in its own category. And we've seen with the popular vote here, we have seen with Players Voice, that at the end of it all, these 5 cleared the competition. And you may go, well, they shouldn't be allowed to be nominated for Players Voice. But if the idea behind Players Voice is that it's community voted, why restrict the options? Because if the community doesn't want it, they wouldn't vote for it. But at the end of the day, the 5 games that were nominated were Wuthering Waves, Zenless Zone Zero, Genshin Impact, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, and Black Myth Wukong. And an easy follow-up about this, which is a valid point of critique against this entire system, is that you will have these games, namely the gacha games, incentivize people to vote for them by rewarding in-game currency to allow people to pull the lever and gacha even more in-game. This has happened before, and it's a common incentivization tactic by these gacha games and these live service games to get their name out there, to accrue accolades and trophies and awards. And when you hear that, you may go, well, it's just rigged at that point, because mobile is a massive market, and if you bribe the player base, of course they're going to vote, whereas For everyone else, it's harder to mobilize people to go out of their way to go to a website, possibly log in, and then vote. That's a lot of steps that people would rather just not do as opposed to doing. But in the case of these gacha games and live service games, the player is at least incentivized, so people are more willing to do so. I think that is a fair critique, but even if you remove that element to it, like sure, it may like move around the rankings a bit, I still kind of think these games would have been selected. Because look at all the controversy surrounding Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree being nominated for Game of the Year. In Players Voice, it still made the top 5. And sure, this is anecdotal, but I still think that quite a few of these gacha games would make the top 5, even if they didn't bribe their player base. Just because mobile is that big of a market, and these games have die-hard fan bases surrounding them. And if you're not in that scene and you're not immersed in these games, you don't understand just how deep it goes for a lot of people. And then the natural follow-up will probably be, okay, well, what do we do besides this? Do we just restrict what the possible nominations could be? But again, I go back to that previous point that if you go into that territory and you restrict what could be selected, especially for something called Players Voice, you're kind of going against the spirit of that award category. Because if the people didn't want it, they wouldn't vote for it. Again, with the asterisk besides some of these games bribing their player base. It's a multi-pronged issue. And I just don't think there's a good overall solution. Because it's not like you can stop these games from rewarding their player base. Well, you want to make a new rule that says, if you reward your players for any nominations in any way, you will be disqualified. Get a few people from marketing and put them in a room for a bit. They can find a workaround or a loophole to that. There's just no real good solution to the problem that is inherent when it comes to trying to stack all these games up against each other when they appeal to fundamentally different audiences and different crowds who, when it comes to award season, don't care about objectivity or looking at things objectively. They just want to root for their home team. It's a competition. People love competition. People want to see their favorite thing win, and if it doesn't, they get upset by it. Happens with every award show ever in the history of mankind. When it comes to Game of the Year, there's 6 nominations: Astrobot, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Metaphor ReFantazio. If you're fans of these games, you're probably happy by this list, and if you're not, you're probably upset by it because your favorite game's not selected. You may also go, why is Shadow of the Erdtree here? It's a DLC. My counterpoint to that would be, if a DLC wins Game of the Year, that says way more about all the other games that came out that year. Granted, I don't think Shadow of the Erdtree is the best gaming experience to come out in 2024, though I did vote for it because I thought it would be really dang funny. But then when one of these games is selected as Game of the Year, you're gonna have a whole bunch of people that question the qualifications of the jurors that made that decision for the most part. And then the retort from a lot of people will be, why isn't this selected by community vote? And then we look back on over to Players Voice, and then we realize why it isn't. Because if we're talking through my biases and my perception, I think the Players Voice nominations are absolutely abysmal. And it goes back to a previous point I always bring up when it comes to award shows. People care way too much about them. I view it as just a time to look back on a bunch of really cool games that came out this year and view it as fun more than anything, actually competitive. There's a lot of people out there that put way too much stock in what actually wins the Game Awards, when it's only one award show and predicated on someone else's opinion. There have been many years where they picked a Game of the Year and I fundamentally disagreed with it. But there's again no real good solution because, what, you want a jury of qualified people who have played all of these games to select what is the best game of the year? What makes them any more qualified than anyone else? What if these people were too bad they couldn't even get through Black Myth Wukong? Or Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree? What if one of these games just wasn't their cup of tea and was a genre that they didn't particularly enjoy? That would color their opinion for what the best game of the year is. Because the problem at the end of the day is putting stock in what the actual game of the year will be. People love competition. It's why award shows always get attention at the end of the year, because people want to have that competition. They want to see their hometown favorite, their favorite game accrue a bunch of accolades and recognition because they really enjoyed that game, and when it doesn't and something else does, there's some people out there that will get very vocal about it and upset. But I think most people will just go, it's kind of stupid, move on, which I think is the healthy attitude to have. Because I look at the Players Voice nominations and I go, this list is absolutely brain dead. Like, I love Wuthering Waves and it would be one of my favorite games of this year. But how did Astrobot not even break the top 10? Where's Metaphor? Where's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Where's Stellar Blade? The issue when it comes to just having a community 100% selected category is that at the end of the day, it'll just become a popularity contest. And I guess a combination of a popularity contest and who can bribe their own player base the most. Do we just want to award Game of the Year to whatever sold the most, was the most popular? At that point, do we even need an award show when we can just look at sales numbers? There's no good solution here, and I think people that genuinely do get upset over stuff like this need to reevaluate why they're getting upset over this. I already made a video about what my Game of the Year is. I have two, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Metaphor ReFantazio, because I loved those games so much, and they were both my standout experiences for 2024. I love them in equal measure, and no matter what wins the Players Voice Award or Game of the Year at the Game Awards or any of these other outlets that do Game of the Year and stuff like that, that's not going to color my opinion, nor should it color yours, because there's no real good solution when it comes to how do you do an objectively correct assessment of what the best Game of the Year is. I think it was a bit more clear the last couple of years with Elden Ring and Baldur's Gate 3, but even then, at the end of the day, people just have different preferences, what they like and what they value, and what they look for out of a gaming experience. And it can be fun to do an award show, right? Absolutely. But that's what it should be, in my opinion. Just a bunch of fun, not to be taken too seriously. Strive to be better, sure, but there's only so far you can go. And besides, I'm looking forward to the announcements more than anything at this point. And just community reaction to if Elden Ring wins anything, because it's going to be so dang funny. I don't know what the funniest possible outcome for Game of the Year and the Game Awards could be. Like, you have to imagine it's some combination of Genshin Impact or like another gacha game like Wuthering Waves as Endless Zone Zero winning Player's Voice, and Elden Ring winning Game of the Year, or just Elden Ring winning a clean sweep of everything, or like Balatro winning Game of the Year, and then Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree winning Player's Voice. There's so many comical ways that this can go. And I think at the end of the day, the best thing that's going to come out of these Game Awards is going to be the memes. Because no matter what way you slice it, it's going to be funny. And that's one of the main reasons I'm looking forward to the Game Awards this year. And I imagine of any part of this video, that will age the best when we get through the Game Awards and we actually see what wins. But hey, games are great. Go play some games, have some fun. Let's talk about some good games. Leave a comment down below with what your favorite game and gaming experience, whether it's a DLC, live service game, or full-blown game. Leave a comment down below with what your favorite game has been this year to play. I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, and hear your perspectives. Stay safe, have a great day. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.